can't be the only one in the internet that is asking this question. Is it fair for the Ghanaian government to invite African Americans from the US and then a few years later they start demolishing their communities? Is it actually fair?
Honestly, what can I say? This is so tragic. I feel like crying because it's like, I know what it's like to invest your time, your money, your blood, your sweat.
We're going to find out in this video what is actually going on in Ghana. Now, it's something very sensitive. I've seen it all over in the internet, and people are actually giving views about this. But I kind of did some research, and I'll come out with things that are really shocking. Okay, let's start the video. Now, African Americans and Black Americans are part of a very large family called the African diaspora. Now, the African diaspora is made up of 350 million people. If we want to take this to be a country, it's going to be the third most populated country in the world after China and India. Now, recently, there are fears that the gap between the African diaspora and Africa is actually widening. Now, African Americans have actually been relocating to Africa for the past years, but then everything exploded after the 2020 George Floyd incident, which itself was a stark reminder, especially to African Americans, of the sad realities in America. Now, all these racial tensions in the US around that moment sent shockwaves across Africa, but then Africans could actually do only little about the situation. What they could do is just commenting on social media and all that. But then one man, the president of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, he took everything on his shoulders and said, no, he hit the table, no, and said that African Americans have a choice, and whenever they feel like relocating back home, by home, he meant Africa, they should come to Ghana, that Ghana is welcoming any African American that wants to relocate. Now, by doing this, he actually instigated all other 54 African countries to do same. That is actually his motive. He wanted any African American to have 54 options whenever he think of racial tensions back in the US. He should have up to 54 options. So this actually has a lot of significance, because just knowing that you have a home somewhere, you have a place somewhere that people can actually welcome you, it's a lot of spiritual healing. Even if you are not relocating to Africa, just knowing that you have home somewhere, knowing that you have a place somewhere. In fact, we can't take that from any African in the diaspora. Africa is their natural home. We can't take that away from them. But knowing that people are there ready to welcome you anytime, it's very powerful. Even if you are not relocating, just knowing, just having that in mind, that there is an option for you. Not talking about 54 options. So other African presidents are actually watching Ghana. What is going to come out of Ghana? Are they going to succeed or are they going to fail? They are watching, so that if everything goes well, most of them are going to open their doors. But if it doesn't go well, that's where it's going to be a problem. Now, this issue of 54 options is actually very important. I happened to read an article some time ago, and one African American actually recounted that being in the US, he is black, actually, yes, of course, and being a Muslim makes him to be a minority within a minority. That is a subset of another subset. I don't know how to put it. That's, you're a black, you're already a minority. Now you're a black who is a Muslim. That's double minority. That's a minority within a minority. Now, he actually said that he had a lot of problems. But when he relocated to Senegal, now Senegal is a Muslim country. Everybody there is black, and it's a Muslim country. Found that things were, he had never had that kind of experience. When he came to Senegal, which is actually a black country and a Muslim country, he actually felt different. He has never felt like that. So all these 54 African countries give unique opportunities to African Americans. Now, we can't just stay there and pretend that this is not also beneficial to Africa. It is, of course, very beneficial to Africa. Growing up, we thought about what happened 400 years ago. I don't want to be calling that name. What happened 400 years ago? We all know what happened 400 years ago. Let me say about 400 years ago, because it's not exact. Time has passed. So we in Africa, in our mind, also have that vacuum in our mind that we suffer from, that knowing our brothers and sisters were unjustly taken from the continent to go and walk without their consent. So just the president making that announcement, the Ghanaian president making that announcement, also helps to release some tension and also to gain some fulfillment for Africans back in Africa. Now, beyond the emotional part, there is the economic part too. We shouldn't neglect that, which is also very, very important. Now, according to a report from the World Economic Forum, there are two main reasons why developing countries can no longer rely on a linear path of economic catch-up. But now, the first is that due to technological development in artificial intelligence, the cost of production, that is labor, has actually dropped in most developed countries. Now, this used to be one of the strongest points of developing countries. This is one of the things that actually pull development and progress and economic growth in developing countries. It actually attracted foreign investments because, labor is inexpensive in developing countries. But now, since there are advancements in artificial intelligence, a task that was maybe done by 100 people in most developed world can be done by a single person just using AI, just using prompts. So the very advantage, the very thing that was making these developing countries to thrive is actually being gradually eroded. Now, the second thing is centered around protectionism. Now, we're actually seeing something going on right now. The major markets are increasingly being protected. We are seeing trade wars all over the place. So it's becoming more and more difficult to access foreign markets and foreign capital. And now this is where the African diaspora comes in. The ingrained bias towards their homeland, which is Africa, of course, is going to act as amplifying nodes in powerful cross-border networks. Now, this is not something new. It happened in history. It happened already to China. And it's one of the reasons why the Chinese economy has become this successful. The 1980s, when the Chinese economy was still very uncertain, diaspora investors were more persistent than foreign competitors. Now, they relied on their cultural and ancestral ties to offset political risk. Now, I watched a video when one YouTuber was actually saying that the African Americans that are coming to Africa are of poor quality. Whatever that means, I don't really want to repeat that on this channel. They don't need to be billionaires. They just need to be aware of the opportunities that are available. They must not even relocate. They just need to be aware that wherever they are, they can serve as amplifying nodes of cross-border networks. What do I really mean by this? Now, this is a video about a British man who buys mangoes in Africa, in Ghana, and sells the mangoes back in Europe and make about $100 million every year. Now, this is somebody that is just aware of the fact that he can do business in Africa.
C'est un homme d'affaires britannique, Anthony Pyle, qui a inventé ce procédé redoutable. Ces produits inondent aujourd'hui le marché européen.
On livre la France, la Hollande, la Belgique, l'Italie, la Suisse, le Danemark et un petit pays marrant au-dessus de la France. Non, l'Angleterre, voilà.
Derrière son humour so-british,
Tu es heureux? Tu es sûr, hein?
We're talking about protectionism that is all over the planet. So when you are given such opportunity by a president, for example, the Ghanaian president, you need to seize that opportunity. Just knowing that you can be an amplifying node of anything business from Ghana in the US, you are just going to make lots of money. Just look at this example of a British man who sells mangoes. He buys mangoes from Ghana and sells it in Europe. It's because he is using that knowledge. He is a British man. When he comes to Africa, he has this connection. But an African, for example, wouldn't have outright do the kind of business that he is doing back there in Europe. He has all the advantages back there in Europe. Same as you, African American in America. You can come to Africa, you do your business. You'll be given the opportunity to relocate to Ghana. Now you master the US. You can already serve as an amplifying node for your business connection in the US and in Ghana. How am I going to put this again? So this is the kind of opportunity we're talking about. Now, Africa Today is a business channel. I want to see a business opportunity. I can't help but just reveal it. I've done business across other places and I understand exactly. So this is not just something that is being made up. It is actually being reported by the World Economic Forum. And it's one of the only ways that Africa is actually going to get a big jump in its economic growth. So the diasporans now have a very big advantage to help themselves and also to help Africa to actually move to the next level. And I think what the Ghanaian president has done is actually a very big opportunity for African Americans and Black Americans. So it's not only for African Americans or Black Americans, but for the African diaspora as a whole. I want to just give a simple example. We talked about white honey on this channel a while ago, and so far white honey is a very scarce product. It's only 2 countries in Africa can produce white honey for obvious reasons. Imagine that you are an African American that had that same opportunity that you had for Ghana in Cameroon, for example. You are going to just be, I don't know how to put it, you are just going to be an ambassador of money between America and Africa and Cameroon. Think about it. It's an opportunity that even the Ghanaians themselves don't have. So it goes both ways anyway. It goes both ways. Why am I telling you all this? I'm telling you all this because I want you to understand the stake that is involved for both Africans and African Americans. Now, I listened to one video where an African American was actually recounting his experience that he had in China when he went to meet the Chinese businessman. Now, they were in this conference room when the Chinese businessman was making a speech and actually addressing the African American, where he also came with a team from the US. And what the Chinese man had to say was he respects African Americans because they're intelligent, they know many things, they know how to do many things. But what he don't understand with African Americans and with all Africans is that they just don't want to work together. They can't work together. Now, I thought this was just a saying that we always say sometimes in Africa, back in our small communities, but I was surprised. I was shocked to actually know that the Chinese actually know about this. They know about this. And this is possibly the same ideology that the Europeans had about Africa when they came to colonize Africa, because they know that we can't actually work together. And I'm beginning to see it actually feature into this new relationship between Ghana and the African diaspora. Now, this is an opportunity that the Ghanaian president has called African Americans to come so that they can work together, they can have economic growth together and all that. But just 5 years after the project starts, we start seeing demolitions. And the demolition is not even the problem. The problem is how are both parties reacting after the demolition? How are the parties reacting? Now, I would say, for example, for the African American side, it's first of all frustrating to come abroad to a country that you have been invited to and you get information like this. It puts everything that you've dreamt for in the dustbin. This actually gives you a very deep regret. And it's not easy to take it. That, of course, is a fact. But then when you look at the way some people have taken this issue, for example, African American YouTubers actually the one throwing the foil on the situation. They're actually spoiling everything for everybody. The intention of the African Americans coming or relocating to Africa was good, but then the African American YouTubers are actually spoiling everything for everybody. Now, the first thing is, when you are a reporter, when you are in a position where you can actually radiate information to people, it is always important to check the facts before you give out information. Else, you are doing a disservice to your community, which is something that we have seen. When this issue of demolition actually started, I wanted to do my research before coming up with a video, because I don't always like to say things and come to the comment and say, no, I made a mistake here. I always want to be on point. Now, the demolition process that's actually going on, I'm not only going to blame the African Americans who are YouTubers, but I'm also going to blame the person whose property is being demolished. I happened to follow a video where a Ghanaian YouTuber had somebody on ground who actually gave accounts on this situation. Now, I'm going to play the video a little bit for you to follow up and make comments later.
So there is a news trending on social media about property or buildings demolished by the Ghana government, and those property happens to belong to African Americans who have moved to Ghana somewhere in 1996 and thereabout. Now, everybody is talking about this issue of why Ghana is doing that and all that, but nobody is asking what actually happened. They are all interested in the fact that buildings have been demolished, but nobody is interested in what happened. You see, if you know what happened, then you can analyze the situation very well, and then you ask yourself, if you were in this person's shoes, what would you do? I had a friend who knows somebody working at the Cape Coast Municipality, and then so I asked him to do some checks for me before I speak about the issue. This is what I also found. When I called the guy and I asked him, he said when he found out, what he got was that the people came there and they had an agreement, right? They had an agreement with the Cape Coast Municipality. And as part of the agreement, they were supposed to make some payment. Of course, the lands are not free. There was an amount you were supposed to pay, which was 5,000 cedis. Those times, it was a lot of money. 5,000 cedis those time was 50 million in our old Ghana cedis. It was a lot of money. You understand? So you were supposed to pay that money. And then apart from that money, you were supposed to pay some annual rent. Pay some money every year on the property for 50 years. This was part of the agreement. If you study the agreement, almost each agreement, each contract, each agreement has been breached. I'm not talking about it. They are only talking about the fact that the building has been demolished, which I think is very unfair to the Ghanaians. Therefore, out of the 5,000 Ghana cedis they were supposed to pay, they paid only 1,000, which is not even up to a quarter of the total amount. You paid only 1,000. And then the annual amount that you are supposed to pay, they did not pay. They did not pay. And then they also didn't develop the land.
So from this situation, we are going to see that the person who bought the land, I'm going to blame the person who bought the land, because when people are really making comments like this, when I go behind videos and I watch comments, very sensitive comments, like African Americans are making comments that they're not going to come to Africa, they're not going to invest in Ghana. I mean, it actually disturbs me, because this is not actually the way forward. I think we're the only race in the world that we are going through what we are going through. We are what they call in French, autodestruction, that is self-destructing. Yeah, the person who bought this land has not come ahead to actually say that he never paid all the money for the land. The first payment was done in 1996. And not only is the payment not completed, the payment is not up to a quarter of the total payment. The land was to be leased at 5,000 Ghana cedis, but then only 1,000 something Ghana cedis was paid. And there was supposed to be a yearly payment, which was not done. And taking into consideration also that the land is not any kind of land. It's not a residential land. Maybe it was residential land, the person will not be really having a problem. It's not residential land. This is a business land, a very high value land in a lagoon. I mean, look at where the land is situated. Look at very high value land, underused. Just imagine, say that you were in New York and you had land beside the sea, which you had to finish paying that year, and you never paid that land. You never bought the land. You deposited not up to a quarter of the money that you had to pay, and you made 27 years without paying the rest of the money that you had to pay, and without respecting the rest of the obligations that are found in the agreements between the seller and yourself. Imagine what will happen to you if you were in New York. Imagine what will happen to you. I don't want us to look at it that way, but I'm just giving an example so that my African American brothers and sisters are going to understand and have a different POV. So that's how it is. I just wanted us to look at it from a different perspective. In Cameroon, when you want to buy land and you don't pay the land within the set period that you had to pay that land, it is a crime. It's given a name. I'm going to give a name in French. Abus de confiance. That is the abuse of confidence. You abuse somebody's confidence. Abuse of confiance is a crime. Somebody can take you to jail for that. Not to talk about demolition. Demolition is very certain. I mean, it is not something about African Americans and Ghanaians. It's something about an individual who never respected his obligation. I think we should look at it from that perspective and stop looking at that is an African American Ghanaian stuff. First of all, the very title of this video is first of all wrong. It's wrong. And I put that title because that's how it is being addressed all over the internet. I wonder what first of all change it. We need to first of all change the title. Though it's not going to call for concern, because if it was just a normal title, so if it was just a demolition of somebody's property or a Ghanaian's property, we wouldn't have ever heard about it. We never heard about it. I'm in Cameroon, I wouldn't have ever heard about it. But it happens to be something like was the African American community, and everybody was like, wow, we just invited these people all over. Why are we demolishing there? I mean, it's something to be taken in a different way. And secondly, it was a lease. A lease can be 50 years or 99 years. In most African countries, it's usually 50 or 99 years. And it's not only in Africa, in most places around the world, even in the US. Somebody can lease a land for 10 years. In the US, I'm talking about the US. In Mexico, 50 years. You lease land for 50 years. It just depends on the agreement that you make. Is the agreement respected? It's an agreement. It's not like you were forced to take that agreement. You agreed on something that the terms were clear and you signed. So at the end of the day, we should look at it in a different way. It's not an African American Ghanaian thing. And all this thing over the internet where people are, it's actually going to really do a disservice to Ghanaians. Many Ghanaians are actually saying that they actually regret starting this over in the first place. Now, us other Africans, we think that it is too early to say anything about this. We should give the relationship a chance. We should give it a chance, because tolerance is also something that is very important in partnership, in business, in family life, in everything. We should tolerate. But then we expect our African American brothers to also understand us. We should not be very quick to judge. And as I said, other 53 African countries are actually watching. Is this relationship worth? Is it going to be a prosperous relationship? Is it going to be a relationship that has so many problems? Are people going to easily take sides? People should not easily take sides. I do not want to talk about this actually because I never knew the details. But as soon as I knew the details, I jumped on it. I knew that something deep is involved. If you look at the person who is actually making these videos, I've watched several videos that he's been interviewed, but I've never seen him saying that this is my receipt, I've been cheated on, I paid everything in full, and they are unjustly taking my things away. Many African Americans are also saying that his land was unjustly taken away without actually verifying. But anyway, the good thing is I've heard that the Ghanaian government wants to compensate him, which is a very good thing. If the Ghanaian government wants to compensate him for what happened, I'm very happy. While waiting to hear that, I think the case is presently play in the court, and they're going to take a decision that is not going to be as painful as demolition. And demolition, I want to say demolition occurs everywhere. So I just wanted us to talk about this. I wanted us to know the stake of what is involved, both for African Americans and also for Africans. There is a very huge stake. Where are we going to? Where are we going to? If we can't solve little problems like this, then it's a very difficult thing. We need to always come back and see how we can solve problems. Well, if you found value in this video, just give a thumbs up. And I think we are at the end of the video. I want to take this opportunity to thank all our members. Most of our members who are supporting this channel are Americans, are African Americans, are Black Americans. And I really do like that solidarity that African Americans actually promote in this channel, and making Africans to learn more about entrepreneurship and business. So you see, we should stop generalizing things, putting things African Americans, this is Africans. No, we are a community, we are a people, and we need to help each other grow. So this division, this problem that is coming in between the African diaspora and Africa is not necessary. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Ciao.
Gonna let you go.